Okay, so we're now on source 2 of the Titanic. Warnings unheeded. Okay, I wanted to make sure I went over this too because this was another word that we were confused on. So that word unheeded, it's not heat, not like hot, okay? So I know it sounds like this. It sounds like heated, right? Unheeded. Remember that that prefix un means not, okay? But this is not heated. This word heed right here, H-E-E-D, heed, okay? This also means not, but heed means that you're listening. Okay, so if you heed someone's call, if you heed, you're listening to them, you hear them, right? So if a warning is unheeded, it means that they didn't listen to the warnings, okay? That's what that means. How do you sink an unsinkable ship? A combination of poor navigation, bad weather, and warnings that went unheeded. Climate. One of the greatest factors to consider in the sinking of the Titanic was the weather. Sources claim that during that year in particular, the world was experiencing climate conditions that led to an increase in the number of icebergs. Moreover, based on the positions of the moon and earth, the tides were favorable for an unusually high tide, an event that would have caused even more icebergs to be in the area or ocean where the Titanic first encountered its large adversary. While the conditions were not enough to cause the sinking of the ship alone, the climate and corresponding large blocks of ice in the water were the first of many steps in a recipe for disaster. So I want to go back and look at 3 things here. When you hear that, the increase of icebergs, what does that mean? Well, increase means that there's more of them. It's going up, okay? When you hear that word moreover, some people got stumped with that word. Basically, it's just saying in addition or additionally has the word more in it, right? It's just saying there's more that I have to tell you. So moreover, based on the position, so it's saying also the positions of the moon and earth affected the tide, okay? The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was that sentence, the Titanic first encountered its large adversary. Let's talk about that word adversary, okay? So, I mean, this, we can make our good inferences here, right? What was a large adversary that the Titanic encountered? Well, what was the whole paragraph about? It was all about the icebergs, right? So what was the adversary the Titanic encountered? It was an iceberg, right? So an adversary is your opponent, okay? Kind of like the bad guy. When we talked about in our narrative stories that you have a protagonist and an antagonist who's against you. He's anti-protagonist. This adversary is also like your opponent. It doesn't have to be a person. Sometimes your adversary can be a person, but in this case, the adversary of the Titanic was the iceberg. Okay, human error. While it is unfair to place blame on any one individual for what happened, there is significant evidence pointing towards human negligence. Now remember, when we don't know what words mean, we can make inferences from the text. And most of the time, they're going to give us the answer in the text. So we're going to look at the text for our answer using our context clues, okay? But if we still don't know, we can always Google it because Google is amazing for looking up what words mean. And we all have smartphones, so we can Google it. Well, not all of us, but some people do. And you can look in a dictionary. So but we don't need to because this was going to tell us. So while it's unfair to place blame on any individual for what happened, there's significant evidence pointing towards human negligence. That's a tough word. Negligence as a contributing factor. Negligence is when something is not taken care of or paid attention to. So if it's not paid attention to, there's another word in this paragraph that's going to tell you what negligence means. Keep reading. During its maiden voyage, again, maiden means first, the captain and crew was warned many times about the large prolific icebergs in the area. The Titanic had received multiple warnings over the radio about the icebergs, but many of these messages were never passed on to the ship's captain. along with ignoring these crucial warnings. So what? Along with what? Ignoring. So what's a good word or synonym that we can use for negligence? Well, if you're being negligent, you're probably ignoring it. You're not giving attention to it. So negligence, ignore. You're not paying attention to it. You've ignored the important information, okay? So again, remember, we can always find our answers in the text. We go back, we look at the text. We're going to be able to find hints for what those tough words mean, okay? The Titanic was not equipped with enough lifeboats. Was not equipped, okay? When you're equipped with something, it means you have the right equipment. Did they have the right equipment? No, they didn't have enough because they never thought it was going to sink. So it wasn't equipped with enough lifeboats to save all of its passengers in case of an emergency, leaving many stranded when the ship went down. Ship malfunctions. Just before impact occurred, one of the first officers on board the ship telegraphed the engine room, telling them to put the ship's engines in reverse. He had hoped that this would help the boat avoid the iceberg, or at least mitigate or lessen the damage. Notice, again, it tells you what it means. What does mitigate mean? Mitigate means to lessen the damage. What are they doing? What are they doing to lessen the damage? They're trying to put the ship in what? In reverse. Unfortunately, putting the ship in reverse was a fatal mistake because the crew could not steer the ship as easily with the engine in reverse. It's here's an important word, ironic fact. An ironic fact that if the crew had not tried to slow the ship down, they might have been able to turn fast enough to not hit the iceberg. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to, again, end this so I can upload it, and then we're going to come right back here in the next video to this spot, okay? And we're going to talk about that word, ironic.